Hi everyone, welcome back to Crochet Tutorials. I'm Kim. In this video we are going to have a look at how to read patterns. It's one of the biggest things I hear in crochet, people saying that they don't know how to read a pattern, and it's fair enough. When you look at them, sometimes they really do sound and look like total gobbledygook. And if you've never read one before or you're not familiar with it, then it's confusing, and certainly it is confusing for all of us who start to read them. However, it is one of the really important pieces of upskilling in crochet. So it will open, once you know how to read a pattern, it will open a whole new world of crochet projects for you. There are plenty of YouTube tutorials on how to make particular items. However, not everything has a YouTube tutorial, and there are a world of patterns out there on free pattern sites and on places like Ravelry and Etsy, and just being able to read a pattern will ensure that you actually can adopt new techniques and create new projects that you never would have been able without the pattern skill. So some patterns are written differently to others, and even the most experienced crocheter can look at a pattern and go, what the heck is this person talking about? Some patterns are just written badly, and because there's no standards necessarily on how to write patterns, people can publish them on the internet and they're pretty poorly written and you have no idea what they mean. In other cases, you will find that patterns have been written in another language and translated, and things get lost in the translation. So it isn't foolproof. Being able to read patterns is certainly not foolproof by any means. Having said that, if you know the terminology and how patterns are written, what the asterisks mean, what the brackets mean, what the abbreviations are, then you're halfway there. That's for sure. So I thought we'll have a look at some of those abbreviations and the asterisks and how things work with garments. But first I thought we could have a look at a pattern that we all know and love that probably no one's ever read the written pattern for, and that is the Humble Granny Square. So I've got my hook and my yarn, and a granny square would ask you to make a ring from a chain. So essentially what that will do is that's chain, say 4, and the pattern would ask you to chain 4. But it of course would do it with the abbreviation. And then it would ask you to slip stitch into the first chain. And again with the abbreviation. So once you've done that, you then need to chain 3 to get to the height of a double crochet, and then place 2 more double crochets into your created ring. So let's do that. Oh, without failing is probably best, but whatever works, I guess. Okay, so then we've got 3 double crochets. The pattern will ask you to chain 2 for the corner and pop in 3 double crochets. Now, because the chain 2, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet is a repeat, frequently what will happen with patterns is that they will put an asterisk next to the chain 2 and on the other side of the 3DC. So that generally means when you see that asterisk, it means to repeat from the first asterisk to the second asterisk. Only those things in between the asterisks are the repeats. So when we complete that, if we've got a chain 2, 3 double crochet, repeat, then we simply repeat that, and it will tell you in brackets, sometimes they won't be in brackets, but it will tell you how many times to repeat it. So for example, with this one, the repeat probably would have said 3 double crochet, chain 2, repeat. So we've done 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. That is our second repeat. It would see generally the pattern, and as I've written it there, it would ask you to chain 3 and put in 2 double crochets. So that wouldn't be part of your repeat, and then chain 2. But then from this 3 double crochet, that would be your repeat. So we've got that and then repeat twice. So it will just depend on how the pattern is written, but what you see on screen is generally the kind of thing that people will suggest, or the instructions that people will give in their patterns. So once we get to the end of that repeat, we've done all our 4 sections, and then it would say slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 to close, and it might just say slip stitch to close, but of course you generally slip stitch to the top of the first stitch that you made. So that's pretty simple. And then of course the next round, that would be round 1, the next round would tell you whether it wants you to turn the work and slip stitch into the corner, or if it wants you to slip stitch instead across those stitches. And it will generally tell you what to do to get to the next position of your next round. So that's fairly simple. Of course, for the next rounds, it would simply do the same thing, but the repeats would get progressively longer as you're doing the exact same thing just for a longer period of time with a granny square. So what about more complex patterns? I've got this, this is the written pattern for the Heart Llama No Drama, and this was a free pattern a couple of years back, but I'm not sure it is now. I think actually you might have to pay for it. It was available on Red Heart and on Ravelry, but it is a pretty good example of a really well written pattern. So if I can just zoom in, I won't show you the whole pattern because I'll probably get in trouble for that, but over generally on the front page of any pattern, it will kind of give you the preamble. So it will talk about the kinds of yarns that were used, the hook size that was used for their example product, and whether or not you need things like stitch markers and safety eyes and stuffing and those kind of things. Of course you do for this, but for other things you won't. So it also talks to you about exactly what yarns were used, what colours they were, and etc, etc. It does give you some, you can see here, the it'll give you some, oh, that actually isn't where it is, special technique instructions. So that's how to make a magic ring, and it will do all sorts of things before it actually gets into the body of the pattern, to the instructions on how to do it. So that is an absolutely essential page. If you're not reading the front page of a pattern, then you're going to look at the next couple of pages and go, what the hell do they mean? And it will kind of explain special stitches in here. There's a fur stitch, which is kind of this loopy stitch that happens all over the body and the head of the llama, and it'll explain to you exactly how to make that. So that tends to be an absolutely essential page for your patterns. I've got another one here to show you. This is a fantastic book, by the way. It's called Crochet to Calm, and because we all know how calming crochet is, unless you have to frog, then it's not quite so calming. But anyway, so Crochet to Calm, really, really great book. I definitely recommend you grab a hold of it if you can. Hang on, I'll zoom out a little bit. And this book has a number of patterns, but it's got this one, which is a really, it's a great pattern to have a look at for this particular example, because it's a pair of slipper boots. And of course, with garments, different well, everyone's a different size, and especially their feet. So every garment pattern needs to give you different sizes. So when you begin your particular chain, or in this case, your sizes are differentiated by the number of rounds you would crochet along the sock of the slipper boot to make it longer or shorter. But certainly things like cardigans will give you a chain size, because you may start at the waistband of a cardigan, and if so, you will need a size for an extra small, a medium, a large, an extra large, and so on. And those sizes will generally come in brackets. So you can see here that on this front page here, the directions are given for a women's size small, so a 5 to 7. But then it says changes for medium and large are in parentheses. So when you look at the actual pattern, it says here, which let me see if I can get that on screen, rounds 6 to 14. That's for the small, because the pattern's written for the small. But then the instructions in parentheses are do a couple more rounds if you are doing for a larger foot. So that will be the case with a lot of the patterns for garments. There might be an instruction to chain 60 for the back of a cardigan, but if you're doing medium, then you might need to chain 65. Large, you might need to chain 70, and so on. So that's the differences, and they'll happen in brackets in those particular places where there needs to be some sort of difference accounted for size. In a lot of, oh, hang on, that's way too close. In a lot of the mandalas, things that have lots of complex color change, they'll do exactly that, but with the different colors. A mandala or some sort of complex mosaic, that might specify a particular colorway, and if you want your finished product to look exactly like theirs, in the case of this llama, if you want your llama to look exactly like this, then you need to use this colorway. And if you don't use these exact yarns, you need to match your colors as well as you can. So they'll give you, let me zoom in again. They'll give you, they'll allocate letters to the different colours. So in this case, the Aran colour, the creamy sort of white colour, is labelled A. Blue Hawaii, this gorgeous blue colour, which is actually really a nice colour, thanks Red Heart, is labelled B. The hot pink is C, and so on. So it will then tell you in your, let me find it. So for the body, beginning at the chest with the smaller hook and yarn A. And it will tell you which yarn to use. Again, we're using yarn A here. In fact, it's not until we actually get to the halter that we start using, where are we? The halter. That we start using the other colours. So, and then join yarn C. So a lot of mandalas and some of those really quite complex blankets with loads of colour changes, they will say it's time to go to a different yarn. And if you're not using the exact yarn from their colourway, you can just pick 5 or 6 or however many colours are involved and of your own yarns and just allocate their letters to them. So you go, okay, well, this is A, B, C, D, E, and I know that, so when it tells me to change to B, I'm changing to my B, and that's a beautiful way to do that. So that frequently happens when there is more than one colour involved in a pattern. So the other thing, of course, is how things are actually written for the stitches themselves. So it will tell you, most patterns will tell you, some won't, and then you'll have to go searching, what the hell is that stitch? I've never seen that stitch before. But here it says special stitches, and it will say the single crochet 2 together. So it tells you how to do that. And of course, if you're unfamiliar with how to do that, you can still look up a tutorial on that, but it will give you its best description. This is a particularly well-written pattern, I've got to say. So then it will say, this is kind of an amigurumi, so, it is made in continuous rounds, but hopefully you can read this. Round 3, single crochet in the next stitch, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, 6 times. So in this one, instead of using the asterisks to indicate the place of the repeat, it's using the brackets. So it says single crochet in one stitch, put 2 in the next, and then repeat what's between these brackets 6 times, which will give you a stitch count of 18. And it will continue to do that. So all of your common abbreviations are there. SC for single crochet, DC for double crochet, you've got trebles, you've got front post double crochets, BLO being back loop only, FLO being front loop only, and most well-written patterns will give you an idea of what those abbreviations mean, especially if they're going to use, some kind of unusual stitches. If they're using particularly unusual stitches, as has this one, they'll actually give you a breakdown generally of how to stitch that. So it is a lot easier than you think. Essentially, though, my recommendation is actually, that is why I always put written instructions on screen for my tutorials, because it will help people learn to read patterns. But if you find a pattern that has a YouTube tutorial that goes with it, and work them both together, watch the tutorial and read the pattern as you go, you will absolutely learn to read patterns in no time, and you'll be a total pro. So I'm going to say thank you to Red Heart. They didn't approve me using their pattern for this tutorial, but I should say it's storming outside, so if you just heard that thunder, that's what that was. It wasn't anyone dropping anything in my house. This is a fantastic pattern. If you get a chance to make the Llama No Drama, such a pleasure to make. Really well written pattern and a gorgeous end product. I should have actually bought mine in. It's sitting in my daughter's room. She completely adores it. The Crochet to Calm book is definitely a great thing. I'm sure they've got this in libraries if you can't buy it, but there's some really wonderful stuff in here. Baskets and blankets and cushions, and this fantastic beanie that I made one of these as soon as I got this book, because look at it, it's just glorious. So that is a wonderful book as well, but it's no good to you if you don't learn to read patterns. So learn to read patterns. I hope this tutorial has helped a little bit and improved your confidence. Anytime I'm working to a particular pattern, I will put those instructions on screen for you, and hopefully that helps. I wish you a wonderful day. Please take a second to subscribe to the channel. If you hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button and set the notifications to all, that will mean that you are constantly updated on all of the latest crochet releases on this channel. I look forward to seeing you down in the comments, and have a great day. Happy crochet. See you next time.